Welcome to Disrupting Japan, straight talk from Japan's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm Tim Romero, and thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about worms. No, wait, don't go. I promise this is going to be really interesting. Today, we're going to sit down and talk with Kenta Yamato of Kaico, a Kyushu-based startup that is using silkworms to rapidly produce custom, small-batch, innovative proteins that are used for bioresearch, medicine, and they play a part in Japan's search for a coronavirus vaccine. It's a fascinating process, but admittedly, one that's not particularly fun for the silkworms themselves. We also talk about the most popular and most unsuccessful e-commerce business model in Japan, the challenges Japanese universities face in spinning out startups, and we even cover some practical solutions to that problem. But you know, Kenta tells that story much better than I can, so let's get right to the interview. So I'm sitting here with Kenta Yamato of Kaico, a company that uses silkworms to produce specific proteins used in medical tests and vaccines. And thank you for sitting down with me.
Yes, thank you for me. And I have a very pleasure to express our company's story. Yeah, thank you very much.
It's great to have you on the show. You know, I try to explain very briefly what Kaico does, but I think you can explain it a lot better than I can. So at like a high level, what does Kaico do?
We started Kaico 2 years ago in 2018. Kaico means silkworm in English. Maybe you know silkworm can make silk for our clothes, but we will use this Kaico silkworm for making proteins. We are a startup company from Kyushu University, and our products are many proteins. The protein the other companies cannot make because it is difficult to make it. We will make these proteins by silkworm.
So if I understand the basic process, you inject the silkworm with a virus containing the target gene, and then it makes the proteins as part of its silk, and then you extract the proteins from the silk?
No. First, we will incorporate a gene of target protein into baculovirus. So this baculovirus is safety for us, human and animals. But baculovirus damage to only silkworms. And we will insert this recombinant baculovirus into silkworm, and their body can make the specific protein in their cell. And finally, we collect and purify the body liquid from the silkworm.
Okay, so it's not from the silk, it's from the silkworms themselves that you extract the proteins.
Yes, we don't use silk.
Okay. So why silkworms? Is there something about silkworms that makes it easy to generate proteins in this way?
Yes, maybe other insects can make same like proteins, but silkworm is only one insect, not move, and it's very cheap. Do you know the price of a piece of silk?
I have no idea.
The piece of silkworm can make is 20 cents or 30 cents United States dollars. So very cheap silkworm. And we can plant a huge amount of silkworm, very narrow space.
So the advantage of the silkworm isn't genetic. It's the fact that they just eat the mulberry leaves and stay put.
Yes.
And you can control them. Okay.
Yes. It's very easy to plant silkworm.
So what is the normal process for producing these kind of proteins?
Normally, people use a very huge tank, like a beer tank, silver tank. But silkworm is a biologic tank, so very useful and convenient for us.
So they're little biofactories,
Yes, bioreactor there.
little bioreactors.
Yeah,
So you mentioned it was cheaper to use silkworm. So how long does the process take, and how much cheaper is it than the industrial approach of large tanks?
maybe many industrial tank need to study and development for the production ways and method. But we don't need a scale up period and money because we can make a protein from silkworm per one silkworm. We will make a huge amount of protein because we'll just increase the number of silkworms. So it's easy to increase. No need to study for scale up.
Yeah, I could see why that would give you a lot of flexibility for producing small amounts or very flexible amounts of the proteins as you need. So, what is the turnaround time? How long does it take from the time that you identify a target protein that you want to produce to the time that you've isolated it and you have that protein in the bottle?
Our procedure is for 1 month, we'll make the recombinant baculovirus. And after that, we will insert this baculovirus into the silkworm. And 3 or 4 days, so they can make the target protein in their cells. So after 4 days, we'll pick up the protein from silkworm. Just only 4 days.
Oh, wow, that's much faster than I imagined it.
Yes, but we need about 1 month to make recombinant baculovirus. So totally 1 or 2 months. For example, regarding COVID-19, we already developed the spike protein of COVID-19. So March of this year, we get approval from Japanese government to study this COVID-19. And 2 months later, Kyushu University and our company had finished this study, and we can get S protein in May 10 or 15th. Yeah, about 2 months.
Yeah, I want to go into more detail about the COVID research you're doing in a minute. But in general, what kind of problems does this solve? Is it so? I mean, everyone's talking about COVID right now, but what other kinds of medical research and testing is this technology likely to be used in?
We are now developing the diagnostic product with partner companies, and maybe in September we can show our demo kits to domestic market. And next, our target is vaccine for coronavirus.
Actually, before we get into the details on the vaccine and the corona, I want to ask you a little bit about your own background. You mentioned before you started Kaico in April of 2018, but your co-founders, it's based on the research of two very prominent researchers. But your own background is in economics and business, right?
Yes, that's right.
So how did you end up starting a silkworm startup?
Yeah, mysterious, maybe mysterious, but my history is long. So after graduation of Yokohama National University, I joined Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. I was responsible for the ship sales and procurement for materials for shipbuilding and power plant. And after 15 years, I decided to make own company. The name is Burio, and we were handling internet product because I was in Kyushu Island 2004 or 5. And in these days, the first stage of Japanese internet trade. So I built Kyushu local product For example, Castella and any other product produce Kyushu.
So like e-commerce sites selling Kyushu products?
So using Rakuten Commerce. But very busy. We could sell the product, but nothing profit because we need parking and dispatching, everything need for manpower. So
I think that is, that is one of the most common and most commonly failed e-commerce models. Everyone wants to sell like interesting food and crafts from local hometowns, but
we can sell, but no profit. So 2 years later, I decided to return to salaryman. But I thought I want to make one more startup company. And I watched a commercial. Kyushu University has a business MBA course for businessmen. Evening class and Saturday class just only. So I joined. And in the MBA course, I met these professors, Kusakabe sensei and Kamiya sensei. And we talked about silkworms problem and silkworms merit. So I found this is very interesting business and this is very Japanese domestic science.
Yeah, definitely very uniquely Japanese, I think.
Yeah.
Was this like a university program trying to match business and researchers, or did you just run into your co-founders socially at the university?
We had some class in university, industry and academic collaboration program, and I joined this class. And I was taught how to make a startup. So one of the selection is the startup company we will make. So I negotiated with these professors, please make our startup company. After that, these professors agreed.
That's great. I mean, we're seeing more Japanese university spin-outs, but they're still pretty rare. So it's great to see this working out.
Thank you very much. And one more matter is Dr. Kusakabe was willing to spread their technology worldwide, but he wanted to stay the professor's position in Kyushu University. He didn't want to be a businessman. So he said, okay, I will stay in university, but you have to make a business.
Well, I think that is, most professors are especially the successful professors, are perfectly happy being professors. They don't want to become businessmen. Are your co-founders involved with the business day to day, or are they strictly focused on the research?
Dr. Kusakabe also joined our company as a technical advisor. And research and development is in Kyushu University's laboratory. And production development is in Kaico.
Excellent. Let's get back, because I really do want to talk about the COVID research. So originally, Kaico was formed well before anyone had ever heard of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
But it's now you're an active part in the search for a cure or search for treatments.
We would like to make some agreement with pharmaceutical company for making market of silkworm vaccine. But at this moment, no pharmaceutical company we can get. But silkworm, we have some technology for eating medicine, for animal medicine. But no pharmaceutical company interested. Last month, we decided to make ourselves eating medicine for human.
When I was reading about Kaico, I came across an article where you were talking about using silkworm-generated proteins as a way of developing antibody tests. Is that something you're still working on?
Yes, we are still. University now researching.
And so what is the path to commercializing that? You were mentioning Japanese pharma companies are very conservative and they haven't expressed direct interest in this protein manufacturing method. So what is the path to get to production, to get these as part of the antibody test or vaccine creation? Don't you need the partnerships with the large pharmaceutical companies to make that happen?
Yeah, we need a pharmaceutical company, and we don't hope to make some agreement with Japanese domestic companies. So we approach foreign pharmaceutical companies. In vaccine market, Global 4 company shared almost 80%. One of them we approached this April and May. But they said this is a time to show their own technology to the market because it's very short time to approve. So they said, your turn is next turn. So first is our technology by ourselves. So after that, your technology is very interesting. Many vaccines for COVID-19 depend on the DNA and RNA. But our technology and our vaccine is based on protein. But just we will make a silkworm. So only the how to make different is just one.
Sure, it's just the production method. It's the same proteins in the end.
Yes.
So what do you think as a company, as Kaico, what is your best path to commercialization? Is it being part of the COVID research? Is it another avenue?
We will hope to make some revenue from COVID-19 production. But normal our business plan is based on animal medicine, animal vaccine. And our revenue comes from the animal medicine and vaccine and research protein. So we can make the normal protein for researcher and companies. And we have some business with domestic companies and foreign companies.
And you recently raised about $2.5 million in a recent fundraising. And I think you mentioned you were planning on spending most of that money investing it in better manufacturing equipment and pharmaceutical grade production.
GMP production, yeah. We are now designing a laboratory, but we can use laboratory for production of animal medicine and vaccine. So depend on the GMP rules. And maybe for human, it's too small.
So then what is the future of Kaico? I mean, how do we scale this business? Are we going to be seeing, millions of acres of silkworms eating mulberry leaves? Do you see Kaico as scaling as a manufacturing?
Yes.
Or more scaling as like licensing the technology? So how does it scale? I mean, do you need just more acres of mulberry?
We will just be a supplier of the medicines liquid to the pharmaceutical company. And maybe we cannot license business because silkworm is not easy to get in United States and Europe. Maybe China and India is easy. But our target market is United States and the European. So we will supply the bulk medicine liquid to the pharmaceutical company.
But do silkworms scale? I could see it being really useful. Like before we were talking about how it was incredibly useful for producing very small batches. But could you produce like really large quantities, or would you be limited by the number of acres?
I don't care of the volume of silkworm because many Japanese farmers offered to grow silkworm by themselves. Recently, silkworm farmer is decreasing, but potential they have. We approached many farmers in Japan. And also in Kumamoto, they have a very special factory for silkworm. So they can make 10 million silkworm per year. So we don't care.
Okay, so capacity is not really an issue then.
Yeah. a pair of silkworm can make 300 to 500 eggs from just only one pair. So the number is, we can increase. No worry about the number of the silkworm.
All right.
And silkworm can only eat mulberry leaf. So if our business is developing and growing, we have to plant mulberry trees so we can decrease CO2.
I think a lot of people would be surprised at how biological a lot of the medical industry is. Even like the flu vaccine is not created in tanks. It's created in like millions and millions of chicken eggs.
In Japan, chicken egg babies.
Yeah, in America as well.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not that unusual in terms of creating proteins and replicating viruses and things to use other organisms like this. But you're affiliated with the university, so maybe it was easier. But usually for biotech companies, it's often very hard to find investors in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So did you have trouble raising money?
Last time, a little. I have some trouble with venture capital, but recently many venture capital approached us for investing because our business model is not narrow medical development. Our business model is a platform for making proteins, and the proteins can be used for research protein and diagnostic protein and for vaccine and medicine. So we have some revenue, and maybe next year we can get bottom line will be plus side, maybe next year. So Japanese venture capital seeking for the good biological company, but narrow medicine development is very high risk. But our business model is low risk, but not high return.
So the investors kind of saw that you had an existing business; they could model your costs and your income, and so they were more comfortable then in investing in more of a traditional biotech.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so Kaico was spun out of a university, and I think that's something that we need more of in Japan. Japan does some really great like fundamental research, but there's often a challenge of turning that research into businesses, into products. And so I'm curious, what do you think we should do, or what do you think universities should do to encourage more of these university spin-outs?
Yeah, it is very problem for Japanese universities. The problem is there is no businessman for making business model from the university's fundamental technology. So many good professor, many clever professor we have. But the problem is we have limited businessman from university. I think we have to make some more businessman for making startup company.
Well, you mentioned that in your case at Kyushu University, you'd gone back to school to get your MBA.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a perfect pairing.
Yes, I think so. I think so. And when I entered the Kyushu University MBA course, I was seeking for the seed of business. So I'm very lucky to meet with two professors. But many MBA school collect the student for just only business, not making business for accounting and
well, I think another thing that was really useful in this case is that you'd had a successful business career before you returned to get your MBA. You weren't just a 21-year-old new grad. Are more and more Japanese businessmen returning to school to get an MBA? Is that something that we're seeing more of?
Yes, I think so. So we need to learn again in 40s, 50s, 60s, moreover. Yeah, we need. But Japanese people, this is not normal way.
Yeah, it is unusual. I mean, it's something Japan needs more of. I'd like to see more people mid-career go back to school and
Yes, I think we need a recurrent and change job. In Japan, we need these two motion for the Japanese businessman, recurrent and change business.
Okay, Kenta, but before I let you go, I want to ask you what I call my magic wand question. And that is, if I gave you a magic wand and I said you could change one thing about Japan, anything at all, the education system, the way people think about risk, the ability to go back to school, you could change anything at all to make it better for startups and innovation in Japan. What would you change?
I'd like to change the language.
The language.
Language, yeah,
How?
because maybe Japanese people shy and hesitate to talk with foreign people is because only from language skill. Many Japanese people can speak English fluently. Maybe Japanese people go out and make a good business with foreign countries' companies. So this is Japanese most ダメなところ most weak point for the business.
I think so. I mean, I think some English ability definitely is important, but I think so. For example, you mentioned Kaico from the very beginning. You were talking with foreign pharmaceutical companies from the very start, right?
Yeah, but this is this is my role. This is my role. So I'm not good at to speak English, but I have to contact with many foreign companies, and I'm very shy, but I want to make my dream. So I need to.
But I don't know. I think maybe that passion, that desire to see your dream come true is maybe more important than English ability.
Yeah. But if I can speak English very fluently, I don't need passion to talk with you. Maybe more smart and more gentleman. I can speak with you.
I know the feeling. I feel the same way about my Japanese all the time.
And so today is easy to communicate with you because I can see your face and you can see my face. So we can convey emotion. But if just only phone, it is difficult for me. But writing is okay. But we need some time to consider translation. So my to-do list is next year or the year after I will stay in United States for Kaico's business. And maybe I can smoothly communicate with you and maybe my business will expand.
You can improve both the English and the business at the same time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And we're back. Before we talk about silkworms and biotech, I want to return to Kenta's first startup, the one that was selling regional specialties, local foods and crafts online. For all this to make sense, I need to explain that regional specialties in Japan work a bit differently than regional specialties in the US or Europe. Like so many things, the system is more formal and structured in Japan than it is elsewhere. There may not be an official body that decides these things, but everyone pretty much agrees on what the regional specialties are from each prefecture and city. And when you return from your travel there, you're expected to bring some of those back with you to share with your family and coworkers. It's a nice system. So maybe it's not surprising that in the late 90s and early 2000s, a lot of e-commerce startups sprung up selling these specialties online. And while these businesses continue to pop up, very, very few of them have been successful. Now, as Kenta explained, much of this is due to the low-margin nature of the business. But I think there's also a more fundamental reason. While many of the regional specialty foods are indeed delicious, that's not the main reason people enjoy them. People enjoy them because it's something we don't eat every day, and because someone brought it back for us. Things just taste better that way. It's like I've explained to my wife that she can buy wine and cheese anytime she likes online, but for some reason, she always wants to eat them with me in expensive restaurants. In cases like this, the commodity itself is not what is providing the value. Okay, getting back to biotech and to silkworms. Kaico seems to have a genuinely novel and surprisingly scalable method of producing specialty proteins. And they are succeeding despite two strong headwinds facing biotech startups in Japan. First, that few Japanese investors are interested in or qualified to invest in biotech startups. And second, that Japanese universities are still struggling to commercialize their fundamental research. But as Kenta explained, we're seeing progress. Universities are taking the surprisingly bottom-up approach of simply matching executive MBA students and scientists. And venture capital, well, venture capital is a global game today. If Japanese VCs are unable or unwilling to step up, there's more than enough foreign capital available to fill that gap. So if these trends continue, and it looks like they will, we're going to see a lot more innovative biotech companies like Kaico coming out of Japan. If you want to talk more about biotech or silkworms, Kenta and I would love to hear from you. So come by disruptingjapan.com/show170 and let's talk about it. If you leave a comment, I guarantee that Kenta and I, or maybe both, will respond. And hey, if you get the chance, check us out on LinkedIn or Facebook. But even better, if you like the show, tell people about it. Disrupting Japan is my labor of love. It's free forever, and we have no advertising budget. People hear about the podcast because listeners like you enjoy it, and they tell their friends about it. But most of all, thanks for listening. And thank you for letting people interested in Japanese startups and innovation know about the show. I'm Tim Romero, and thanks for listening to Disrupting Japan.